And we're live on Book Chat Live. And this week...
Hey, how you doing?
Yeah, we're doing... Well, we've been having not severe technical problems, but mild technical problems. So if it sounds like I'm talking to... do you want to be known as Jonathan, or do you want to be known by your pen name as Davon Greene?
Either or, Tim, but my pen name is Davon Greene.
Okay. So, well, I'm going to ask that question while we've still got good connectivity. Why are you known as Davon Greene? Why that particular name?
Well, the name is my whole idea when I first started writing was to be a kind of a mystery. There was a guy named Iceberg Slim years ago who wrote books, a lot of books, and nobody knew who the guy was for a while. You know, he didn't do interviews, and when he started doing interviews, he was doing them with masks, and so that was the idea, to try to be incognito. My dad wrote books, as you know, and he wrote as B.B. Johnson, but he was, incognito when he wrote. So I just tried to do the same thing. But first, Tim, I want to say it is a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me, sir.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. So, do you want to talk about the first book we're going to talk about?
Sure. We can start on the first book right now.
Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. This was talked about last week for the first time on the show, which I was amazed about. So why this book then?
Well, I'm looking at if you wonder what I'm doing, I have some little cliff notes over here because I read this years ago. But Think and Grow Rich was one of the first books I read as far as trying to change my ways, trying to grow and trying to hold on to money instead of spending it. So, with Dale Carnegie, he was the emphasis or the spark behind this book for Napoleon Hill. And they had a lot of little stories in here about that you can relate to. He had the story of, what was the guy's name? Edwin C. Barnes. Now, Edwin C. Barnes was a guy who thought about, he was actually kind of broke at the time, but he wanted to go into business with, what was the guy's name? Thomas Edison. Oh, yeah. And going into business with Thomas Edison, he showed up at Edison's workplace, his facility he had when he was coming up with all these crazy ideas and all these new things to change the world. But he showed up and he looked like a vagabond. And Thomas Edison was like, well, what do you want? Why are you here? So forth and so on. And Mr. Barnes, he was persistent. And he said, look, I want to work with you, so forth and so on. And that, he finally got a job with Edison. And once he was in the door, the rest was history. And he made millions because he persisted at what he believed in. He had a dream, actually, that he worked with Edison, and that's what ended up happening. Yeah.
Okay. So what do you think is the biggest lesson that you learned from reading this book then, personally?
Well, thinking, there are a lot of people in the world who seem to try to do things the easy way. And persistence isn't easy. A lot of these things, what was it? Perception. He had a lot of thoughts in here that made you think about, people who nowadays who are getting rich quick and so forth and so on.
Yeah.
It takes time. You have to set down some plans. You have to, matter of fact, he had a story in there. What was the other guy's name? I'm going to give you the guy's name because I remember this. R.U. Darby, because I had to remember his name. I got his name written down. R.U. Darby was another guy. I'm going to give you another example, but he was another gentleman in the book who found gold. He went out west and found gold. He dug up, and he found gold, and he was going to strike it rich. So he went back to his family. I think it might have been Chicago or somewhere back east, and he got money from all his relatives, and they bought some equipment. They went out there, and he started digging and so forth and so on, and that gold vein dried up. And can you imagine, you got all this money from all your relatives, and now you're like, what happened? What happened? What happened? So they kept digging, because he had a partner by then. They kept digging, and they just could not find the vein. Well, make a long story short, he ended up selling everything, and the guy he sold it to bought in a specialist in that field, with the field of rocks, whatever that's called. But he bought in a specialist to figure out where is the what happened, so forth and so on. And the guy says, hey man, it looks like it's right here. And it turns out they started digging 3 feet. That's all they had to dig, 3 feet, and there it was. So that's another lesson of stopping. And as a matter of fact, the chapter was called something like stopping 3 feet short of your dreams, or something like that. So you have to be persistent. You're going to have to stay the course. And if he would have stayed the course, he would have been a millionaire multi times over. But he decided to leave. He gave it up. And he just gave it up too early. That was the bottom line.
Okay. Shall we talk about your next book?
What was that, Tim?
Shall we talk about the next book?
Oh, sure.
Right. Here we go.
Which one was
Better Off Dead by Lee Child. Another author that's surprisingly never been on the show before. So why this particular book?
I'm a Jack Reacher guy.
Yeah.
I have loved Jack Reacher for years. I've watched the movies, and I watched the movies before I read the books. So Better Off Dead basically was another Jack Reacher story, and he comes into town, and he's the big burly hulking of a man who brings attention everywhere he goes. And in this book, he does the same thing. It's in a small town. Takes place in a small town along the Mexican American border, and I believe it was New Mexico. I can't remember exactly where the actual city was, but he comes across a lady when he comes into town. He's walking, and he hasn't got to town yet, but on the outskirts, he comes across a Jeep that hit a tree, and he sees a lady who's bent down over the steering wheel, and he approaches her. Well, make a long story short, she is an ex-military personnel, and her name is Michaela, and her brother's name is Michael, and she's in this town looking for her brother because he sent word to her that something was going on. And so her and Reacher join forces, and he helps her out. But the interesting thing about this book, at the beginning, right when it starts, Jack Reacher dies, and you're like, oh, what? So once you get into the book, you realize he's not dead.
Yeah.
He's actually, he plays the part as dead, and the doctor, rules him dead, and this guy's checking him, so forth and so on. But I think they might have shot him up with something that seemed like he was dead, but he survived. And there's a guy named Danziger, I believe his name was, and he's like the protagonist. He's the bad guy, and he's got the town wired. But he's got a legal business that takes airplanes, it does stuff with airplane crews and so forth and so on. But he's really making money in all his legal businesses, and they go across the border. They have tunnels up under the border to take them to this place and that place in Mexico, and he runs guns, drugs, everything else.
Yeah.
And to make a long story short, I don't want to tell the ending, but Reacher gets they do find Michael, and Reacher gets his revenge on these guys.
Yeah. So why did you pick this particular Jack Reacher book then?
I just, this was actually the second Reacher book I read. I just like the character and like the idea of who Jack Reacher is. He's not your typical hero. He doesn't do things. He reminds you of Clint Eastwood back in the old westerns, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And he doesn't do it exactly the way it's supposed to be done, but he gets the job done.
Yeah. Okay.
That's what I remember. Though that he reminds me of those old westerns that I used to love.
Yeah, I can imagine. Okay, shall we go on to the next book then?
Sure, Tim.
And The Total Money Makeover by Dave Ramsey. So another money book.
Yeah, I you know what, Tim? I don't know about a lot of people. I grew up. I wanted to have money in my pockets. I didn't want to struggle. I didn't want to be a broke guy. So I read this after, a little bit later on, I read this book. And this book, actually, be quite honest with you, it changed my life at the time. I read it in 2011, 2012. And I had lost everything in 2007, 2008 in California when the real estate market went under. I was in real estate, and I lost a whole bunch of stuff. And just before that, I was sued, and that gave my partner a lot of heartache and so forth and so on. But make a long story short, I'd lost everything, and I was on my way back, and I read Think and Grow, The Total Money Makeover, and it was a whole nother way of looking at money. So my wife is an accountant, and she, along with that book, was one of the first steps I took. My wife, with her saving skills and spending money wisely, helped me. And but the Total Money Makeover, when I read it, I remember the principles. Dave Ramsey, get yourself out of debt, pay off your debts, the smallest to largest. Get yourself an emergency fund, $1,000 at least, depending on your situation. Then go further. You pay off your cars, you pay off your home, and it ended up, But he tells you to tear up your credit cards. Now that's a hard thing to do. That's a hard thing to do. But you can actually get home credit from a few places, but you have to have a 0 credit score. So it's 2 to 4 years before you can get down to that 0 credit score. But if you have a 0, people are willing to finance you. And I was really surprised at that. But there's different ways to look at things.
So what was the biggest thing from this book that affected your life and changed it then? Was it that credit card thing?
Actually, he got me to invest again. He got me to invest in the stock market. So I got into the stock market. I started buying stocks and so forth and so on, and saving. Started doing Roth IRAs. He got me to start doing that, Roth IRAs, and for retirement. Because I had thought about that years ago, but those things happen and they pass. You spend that money, you get that money, that easy money that comes in. I would sell a house and I'm buying a boat. So it was, that's how it was back then. So anyway, I had to learn the hard way, and I had to make some changes.
Yeah. So
but like I said, in 2008, man, I lost everything. 2007, 2008, I lost everything.
So now you've actually got some retirement income possibly coming in at some point then.
Possibly coming in at some point now. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay, let's go on to the next book, which is a bit more closer to your heart. Which is L'Oreda Nouveau by Davon Greene.
Yes, that is my first book. We put that book out on, once again, I'm glad you mentioned it, but this is our first book. This is the first book I did. And I actually wrote this in 2013, 2014. And I had one or two books done in 2016, 2017, and we were going to try to get it published and try to go the publisher around this and that. And my wife said, no, let's do this. Let's keep on writing.
Yeah.
So I'm on my 5th book.
Oh,
so
okay.
So we'll see how that goes. But Laredo Nuevo was my first book. I had got into trucking, and I was down in Laredo all the time. And I would listen to these guys' stories, and it just sparked something in me. And I just started writing, and I came up with the premise, and it starts off with another murder. A patriarch of the father of a family, he gets murdered, and it follows a sicario named Ernesto Acosta. Now, Ernesto Acosta is an assassin of the Ninth Power or Top Creed or whatever you want to call him, but he works for this. Well, I don't even want to. Let's say a cartel in Mexico, a top drug cartel, and it ends up going through the story. He has to kill these people and kill those people, but it starts getting close to home because he starts getting feelings for a woman, and to bring it all together, Ernesto Acosta changes who he is, and everybody's turning against him, and even his patriarch, a man named Ghost, who got him into what he was doing, and he is the head of this cartel. Ghost, even turns against him because Ernesto is cunning. He's smart. He knew some people were turning against him, so he started laying traps. And once he started laying these traps, he went to him and his comrades went to what was it called, a quinceañera, and they show up in clown suits, and they massacre a whole bunch of people, and they disappear, and it sets off this war, and but he does this because he knows these people have turned against him, and in the long run, he comes out on top, man. He really does. He sets it all up. He's playing chess. They're playing checkers. In the long run, it's a done thing, and he comes out on top, and it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. So, is this a thriller or is this a murder mystery?
Oh, that's a thriller. That's a thriller. If you saw the movie Sicario, if you saw any of the Jason Bourne movies, even the Jack Reacher movies, even the latest, what's his name? The movie just came out a few weeks ago. Denzel Washington's latest. Just came out, and you know what? That's a bad thing that I can't remember the name, but Equalizer 3, the Equalizer 3.
Yeah,
that was a good movie, and actually took place in Italy. Great location, beautiful. It was done beautifully. Love the movie. So, if you can't tell, I have seen the movie.
Is this the first book in a series of books, or can this be read on its own?
That is the first book in a series, but the last book we're going to talk about is my new series. I have 2 series going on. So this one stars Ernesto Acosta. The next book we talk about at the end stars Briscoe DeVos. So,
but are the other books in this series available on Amazon after this? So
this is the first one that we put out, and we put it out during COVID-21. Yeah. So there's no other books available in that series yet. The next book is already written. And that book takes place in all over the world. Monte Carlo, Mallorca, Ibiza. So, because I like that stuff. So, so I write about it.
Oh, yeah, I've written books, and the opportunity to set them in nice places that we might have happened to have visited is always a great temptation.
Yes, isn't it? Isn't it? Yeah.
Okay, well, let's go on to your final book not written by you. So
okay.
The Millionaire Next Door by Thomas J. Stanley.
Now, I read this book years and years ago, man.
Yeah.
This was probably 2004, 2003. I read this book, and because I think my mom recommended the book or something like that. But it had a basis. You know, they did a 20-year study. This guy, Thomas Stanley, the writer, they did a 20-year study on all these millionaires, and you know what, the thing that, oh man, don't know why that happened. The thing that sparked this my interest. Matter of fact, I remember what happened.
Yeah,
I was at a friend of mine's shop in Pasadena, California, years ago. This guy walks in. You know, he has an auto shop. He repairs cars, so forth and so on. This guy comes in a brand new Mercedes-Benz SEL, 4-door. It was a big, long one, brand new. He had plastic on the seats and all this. And I'm talking to my buddy inside. And this guy gets out this car and comes in, and they're talking in Farsi. It was Iranian or Middle Eastern, but he gives him the keys, and the guy leaves. Now, the guy looked like a gas station attendant. I mean, an oily gas station attendant. But after the guy leaves, me and my buddy are talking, and he says, "Hey, man, look, you know, we were talking about something." And I said, "Hey, man, who was that guy?" And he said, "Oh, he just bought that for his wife." I said, "Get out of here. He bought that for his wife? Get out. Man, come on, man, don't play with me." He said, "No, he bought it for his wife." And then he started naming the gas stations he owned. He started naming this factory, the building that I've known about for years, but I didn't know what they did there. And the guy made cassette tape holders. He made the plastic holders for, so you know this years ago. But anyway, he owned a ton of stuff. And if you looked at him, you wouldn't have looked at him twice. So that's what sparked me to read The Millionaire Next Door. And, you know, you realize that your average millionaire isn't running around with all these gold watches and this and that and the other. He drives the same Ford Crown Victoria for 8 years. He lives in the same neighborhood for 20 plus years. He has a business that's grown exponentially. He has investments in a range of investments, but primarily in the stock market. He might have gold. He might have stuff like that. And he has real estate properties. And then in this book, they do a comparison of a guy who owns, what is that called? He owns a trailer park versus a doctor. And then they did, and this was an actual case study. And the doctor they make about the same thing every year, but the doctor's expenses were so high that on paper, I think he was worth maybe half of what the other guy was worth. The trailer park guy owned his trailer park. He rented out the spaces or whatever, and he was making money hand over foot. So anyway, it just shows you the real world versus the facade that's on TV.
Yeah. Okay, that's good to know. So, is this book a story about or description about the lifestyles of normal millionaires as opposed to what people think? What did you learn from this book as such?
Well, it's basically a case study.
Yeah.
It took them 20 years to do this, and their case study is based on thousands of actual millionaires throughout the U.S.
Yeah.
And I learned your average millionaire isn't who you think it is. I mean, bottom line, and you don't have to be flashy. You don't have to. And I learned, you got to put money away. Now, I did it a few times in the past, but not like I try to save now.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I had a neighbor back then who was just the guy. I'll just put it like this. He was very frugal, to say the least. And he was so frugal. I was out mowing my yard one day. I was doing the front yard, and he drove up the street with a brand new Rolls Royce for his wife. and nobody could believe it. You got to be kidding me. Yeah. But he always wanted a Rolls Royce. He owned a plumbing company, and he was a plumber. But he fit the mantra perfectly for this book.
Yeah. Well, often the reason why people are millionaires is because they're not spending their money on.
Yes,
on
yeah,
this
and
stuff.
he did not spend money.
Yeah,
And my mom used to make me cut his yard because his grandkids didn't want to cut it for a quarter.
yeah.
He'd give me a quarter, and I'm like, Mom, that's all they. But anyway, but that's like,
Well,
my hat's off to him. He saved his money, and it worked for him.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, and let's talk about your new book, which is
okay.
Oh, hang on. Let me do the little thing just so. It's coming soon. Paladin, Briscoe, De Wallace, Defender of House Lafleur. So that seems like a big. This is by you, presumably.
Yes.
Or is this? So what? Decode all the Paladin, Briscoe, De Wallace, Defender.
Okay.
Is this
The
all
name of the book is Paladin, and the name of the book is Paladin. Basically, starting.
Yeah.
That's the start, because he is. I picked that name because he is one of those guys who just. He's going to do the right thing. He's going to save some people. He's going to, and that's actually Briscoe DeVos, and he's going to do some things that shows us the right and the wrong in the world. He's going to do some right things no matter what. Hell with the consequences. He's going to do the right thing. So, Defender of House Lafleur comes in because this book is about. What's it? How do you say it? It's about a curse that was placed on House Lafleur, which is the Lafleur family, by the Batiste clan, because their land was stolen by the Lafleur family years ago in Louisiana, and the Lafleur family found oil on the land. That's why they stole it. Yeah, and the Batiste clan said, okay, they had they were from Haitian descent, and they had voodoo queens. They had voodoo high priests within the family, and one of them cursed them forever. And finally, in this book, that curse comes true. And the head of the Lafleur household, Bartholomew Lafleur, gets kidnapped at the beginning of the book. He gets murdered, and they cut off his head. And I mean, and they even paid the $1 million, but it happened. They still killed him. So this whole book is about Briscoe DeVos running down those paths of finding these killers, finding out what actually happened, finding out about the curse of the Batiste clan on House Lafleur, and going through the modern day trials and tribulations that you have to do to solve something like this. And then there's another element to this that, as I say, Paladin, he is actually one of the chosen few on Earth, and he gets an amulet in this book from a lady who's actually been on this planet 2,000 years. And that amulet helps him. Let's just say that. So if you like the Avengers, if you like, once again, Jason Bourne movies and stuff like that, there's a combination of this in here.
Okay. So as you mentioned before the show starts, and this presumably, as people are probably going to see this on YouTube after the event, okay, not now, but you have a special offer that people can get hold of the first chapter of this book.
Exactly, Tim. This is the first time I'm doing this.
Yeah.
Your listeners are going to be able to receive the first chapter for free. All they have to do is go to davonandgreen.com, our website. When they get in there, if they're on the mobile device, they can enter the site button. They're going to press that. If they're not, they're automatically in the site. If they're on their computer, they're going to go to the Paladin page. And at the bottom of the Paladin page, there's a button, a black button that says download first chapter for free. Well, it's download first chapter for free. All they have to do is hit that. They can go in, do what's necessary, and they will get a copy of the first chapter for free of my new book.
Okay, so this is the website.
Exactly. And what we're looking for is we're going to look for, hopefully we can get honest reviews when the time comes, or they can buy the book when the time comes, and
And
But we are looking for honest reviews for that Amazon algorithm.
Yeah, well, let me share the Chrome tab. Yes. So how does this look? Oh, this doesn't look good at all. Hang on.
No, there shouldn't be. That's the same photo. Yeah, that's the same photo.
That's what
we're going to
have
do
to
a
click
book with
here.
cover review. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Download chapter 1 now. Exactly.
So that's where people need to go. They
yes, sir.
Want to get chapter 1. How many chapters are in the book? Just out of
11.
11. Okay.
11.
Right. It's too much of this psychedelics. Oh, yeah. This is where you do stuff on the cuff. All the formatting goes astray. So,
oh, this was fun, Tim.
Yeah. I've got. I always have a couple of questions I ask people after the interview. So, one is, which of those books would you recommend to people if you had to pick just one of them?
Well, of course, I'm going to recommend my last book, the new one, because I think it's my best work so far. But if you're financially in need of some guidance, if you let's go this way. If you need some oomph to get you to where you want to get to in your financial life, read The Millionaire Next Door. That'll give you a basis. If you want to do something right now that's going to change your life and you're ready to make some drastic changes, read The Total Money Makeover.
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. And the other one I usually ask people is, what book are they writing next? But you seem to have already said, well, I presume have you finished the Paladin book yet?
Yeah, I have. I'm working on my third Paladin book right now.
Okay. So, well, I'm curious about this because you've got your Laredo Nuevo book. Sorry, mispronouncing that.
I'm done with the second Laredo Nuevo. I've written 2 of those, and now I'm working on my third Paladin book right now.
So, what schedule are you going to release those in on?
It depends on it depends on Paladin. If we get some, I really like that character. I like both my characters, but it all depends on the way it's greeted, the way it's accepted. If they, I'm gonna let my viewers probably end up picking that. If they really like the book Paladin, I'm gonna come out with the Paladin 2 next year. I'm gonna do this one coming at the end of the year. Probably, I think we chose February as a release date. That's when this one's coming out. And then if it goes as well as I'm hoping it does, we will release February next year the next book in the series, a Paladin.
Yeah. When can people expect the next book in the other series, or is that dependent on how well it does relative to Paladin?
It all depends, man. I'm done with that book. It's been edited and everything. It has to go to the copy editor, and then we've got to do the cover and all that. But you can maybe expect it maybe mid-year next year, or we might hold off, maybe do some more promotion for that book or something like that, and get some people excited about it. Because our website, we just designed this website for this. We've changed a lot of things. When we released the original Laredo Nuevo, that was just during COVID, and we just threw it out there. Let's see what happens. And we didn't really have too much marketing. Well, we wasted money on some stuff, just like everybody does. We tried some different kind of marketing techniques, and it just
He's got this rather mean-looking picture of you on the front of it.
Well, my wife and my web designer, they picked that picture, and I said, okay, fine with me. Let's go with it.
It certainly suits the.
That's how that worked.
The Laredo feeling, doesn't it? It's like some Mexican sort of thriller.
Well, you know what, Tim, sometimes you get overruled in life, and that's the picture they chose. Okay.
Oh, well, I didn't know what the other pictures are, like you in a clown outfit or something, so it might be. Anyway, let's get rid of this and get back to the. Well, it's been great to talk to you this evening.
Man, yes, it has, Tim.
Yeah, it's been a little choppy at times, but I think you've got your point across, which is the main thing.
Okay.
So hopefully you'll have great success with your new book when it comes out. And as let me put that website back up again. People can get the first chapter here free.
For free.
Obviously, if the book is already out when you see this, and just buy the book. But
no, it's not. It's not going to be. Like it won't be out yet till when they see this.
Yeah.
It's
well, this is going to go on YouTube, so this will be there for it could be years ahead that people watch this and think, "Oh, that sounds an interesting book." And
yes, now that's true. Yes, so, that's true.
Yeah, that's the great thing about live shows and podcasts and the like. They're not just it's not just
You're right.
once, it's forever. So somebody could see this in 2028 when you're on your 15th book in this series.
Yeah, I remember that guy. Wow, man, did you see that video book chat live he did? Man, I remember that guy.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens.
Yeah. Anyway, it's been great to have you on the show, and I'm going to try and find the end stream button here somewhere, which is up the top. So thanks to all the people watching, and thanks to the people watching in future.